that shit. Listen, ayy, look, cash flowing, pockets growing, wake up, bless every morning. Just in case y'all didn't notice, I'm the fucking shit up in this bitch and everybody knows it. Cash flowing, pockets growing, wake up, bless every morning.
Welcome back to What's the Situation? Today, I have got my best friend, h0le Patterson, with me, and we're going to be talking all about motherhood. We have little Miss Cooper with us. She is literally the cutest. So today, in the situation room, little Miss had a blowout earlier, and now she's like, I want
put
to
her on blast.
jazzercise.
She's feeling good. Lost a couple pounds.
Did you hear about the actor? Who was it? I cannot remember. Him and his wife.
Gene
Yeah,
Hackman.
Jane. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And his dog.
Me and Bianca were like, but the dog's died.
Oh my gosh. And they said there wasn't a gas leak or anything.
I know.
What?
At first they thought that was it, like the carbon monoxide. And then I'm like, then they came out but I don't know. It's so strange.
Video wants to know what motherhood looked like. This is it.
So we'll just jump right into Help Me Sid. What's your situation? So we had a couple write in about what is your support system like? They're going to be having a child and they don't have one where they live.
I'm from here, so my support system is crazy. I'm so lucky. My best friends are still here. My mom comes over to my house every day. I call her my nanny right now because she watches Cooper while I work. And I don't know what I would do, I think, if I didn't have such a big network here.
Well, and I think it's hard because Rob's working a lot too. So it's almost like you're kind of like a single mom from those 9 to 9. And being a single mom, I know personally, obviously, like Adam's around and helps whenever I need things and need for him to take Sterling. But without my mom, it's so difficult. It's like those moments that you're just like by yourself. You're doing all this stuff. You're working and you've got 2 kids. I just cannot imagine. I don't see how people have children without a support system around them.
I think a support system too doesn't have to be just family. You were a huge help when Cooper first got here. And I had people around me to recognize too the mental health part postpartum. And we're like, no, you need to get away. You need to be yourself without the kids. And I think that's such a big piece. Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like my mom and dad are here. If you have a close group of friends, like really rely on your tribe that you have around you.
And I think that's like an important thing because Bianca and I recorded earlier this week about friendship and having people in your corner and having your people who are dedicated and wanting to be in your life and be helpful. And obviously there's times that I can be more available and come over and be with you guys more or help out more. And then there's times like my life gets crazy. So you're just surviving. But I think having people who can show up for you in those times of need and be helpful and help wrangle in the kids. I have a couple of friends who have nobody. And realistically, I think that sounds like my worst nightmare.
I don't know how they do it.
Like they never go out.
Yeah. I think the first 6 months of baby life, I feel like after 6 months, you can trust that they're not going to fall off of something. She can sit up now. That's a whole like game changer. I think when they become hit babies, it's a game changer instead of worrying about where her head is.
The head thing always creeps me out.
And you maybe trust a friend more to keep them at that age.
Yeah.
I'm nervous at like the first 6 months just because they're so needy.
They are.
I mean, and they'll roll off of anything.
When you're super patient, when I had Sterling, that first couple, I feel like the first year was just really hard because it was like they need you 24/7. And I feel like without my support system, I would have like mentally, I would have had, well, I already did have mental breakdowns, but it would have been probably worse, far worse if you're not able to go to Target or go out on date night without always having the kids.
I'll also say when they're still in that like carrier, that's your prime time to go to whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Go to a brewery, hang out, they'll nap, they'll sleep, they'll do whatever. It's when that carrier goes away.
It was so
and
difficult.
You're wrangling and they don't like the high chairs because none of them are comfortable at restaurants.
Nope. And they like get this face like shit's about to hit the fan and you're like, oh.
And every toy hits the ground and you're in the I just think when they're this age, go do stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think once they start walking, it's no. Crawling too. I feel like that moment when they start to crawl and they're like mobile and they want to move around until you have them in one place, they have these like breakdowns because they're like, I want to move.
And especially when it's like playground era, like we're going to Wilmington and we're like looking, well, what if he has a meltdown? We need a bigger hotel room because if our almost 4-year-old decides this isn't what he wants to do, we have to have a place to go and we have to find the playgrounds. And Vacations just look different, which is fine. I love it. But it's just
Glad
different.
she loves it. No. That's what I love because all my friends are having babies. And so I can like still come over, love on the babies, and then leave and then go out and have a good time.
Well, it's like the blowout when I first got here. You were like, Mama's
Yeah.
got to change you.
Yep.
Like,
but I love that too. I like being able to witness that. I just know that I'm not in that phase of my life anymore. Like for me, that was a really hard phase. I don't know if it's probably because I'm more selfish on those things. Like I never thought I would have kids. And I think with Sterling, I literally was given like the most perfect child for me. He's hard headed in so many ways, but I feel like I can deal with that rather than he's very much so play by himself, do his own thing. And I don't know if I could take a child that was like 24/7, needed me to be there in their shit all the time.
Not to sound like, oh, everything is like Christian and that kind of stuff, but I think we're all given the kid that fits us. Like Cruz is the chillest kid.
Yeah.
We thought Cruz was an easy baby until she came along and we're like, never mind.
Yeah. She has been so like, she's just go with the flow.
She's going to have a fit now just because.
Yeah. Look at her little face. But that's just, that's how having babies is. And I love to be able to watch you guys have that. And they're so much fun until they're not. No, I'm just
Well, it is true.
You have people, one of my friends was asking me, he's dating, he's in his mid 30s. He's never really wanted to have kids until now. He was like talking about it. And he's like, do you feel like having a child is rewarding? And I was like, it is rewarding, but it's also a lot of work. I don't agree when people are like, oh, kids are so magical. It's like, no, sometimes kids are assholes. And that's okay because they're kids. They're going to go through days just like we do. But I wouldn't change it at all because Sterling is just like he's my little boo thing. He's just so cute and he's funny and he cracks us up. I think with kids, like I go over to your house and they're so much fun and you just are like, when they're not kids in your immediate circle, you're like, at least I'm like, fuck those kids.
I don't like people's kids.
No.
Unless they're my friends or my family. I've never been like a babysitting person. Never babysat as a teenager. I'm like, nope, you can hold it. Do you want to hold this baby? Not really.
Nope, I'm good.
No. And I also think kids can't have bad days. We expect them to be like so perfect all the time. And especially like with Rob and Cruz, Rob works so much and Cruz will have a bad day. And of course it's on Rob's day off because that's a kid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he had a bad day. He's allowed to, but we think they should be like all orderly all the time.
Yeah. And that's just not how it is. I think they're also learning how to like work through their emotions and stuff. But I think when you're in the trenches of it, it's like, good God. And especially I'm sure for Rob too, like working as much as he does, having a day off is like, okay, great. I have a break. And then you have a meltdown on those days. And it's like, oh my God, it's so stressful. But I feel like you blink and you're like 10 years went by. I legitimately feel like I blinked and my child is now almost a teenager. But when you're in the trenches, it feels like a week is a decade sometimes.
Well, and it's so true that the days are long, but the years are short. I can't believe Cruz is turning 4. It's wild to me that we're talking about kindergarten and trying to figure out where we're going to put him. And she's going to be a year. And I think that's a good piece for like moms is hold on tight. I know people tell you that and you really don't believe it because it's just everything feels so big in the moment.
Yeah. But I think to wrap this up is find people, even if you don't have family, who can be your community and just be like, hey, like, this is what I need out of you. I think I always tell people, especially with you, like when you have Rob back home, I don't ever want you guys to feel like I'm intruding, but I'm here to help if you guys need, like sometimes you just need a break, but rely on your friends. Just be like, hey, like can you come over for 5 or 6 hours so we can go out? Or even if it's a couple hours of being able to just have a break. Like I remember so many times I wish that I had that or I had that, but I think being able to ask for it.
I think that's the key. So many moms want to be like super moms. And I know I'm guilty of it. I never ask for help. Like you literally have to come over and be like, I'm taking your kids, leave your house.
Yeah.
And
I literally have to push her out and be like, I will punch you in the face if you do not leave.
And part of it is you don't want to miss a second. But the other part is you have to remember that you're still you.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to lose yourself in motherhood and not want to miss a second. But sometimes you got to miss a second to be a better mom.
You do. I think, well, it's just,
or a lot of seconds.
For a lot of seconds. So today I really thought about what I wanted to talk about. And because I feel like having you here, you're my best friend, but we are so different from each other.
So different.
So different. So I felt like when I was thinking about who I could bring on, I'm like, you will literally get complete opposite takes from us about mother. I think on some level, probably similar ones, but I think how we are as mothers is very different though too. So thinking about topics, the first one that I feel like a lot of people had questions on, how has motherhood changed your identity?
I think for the better. I think I'm a better human as a mom. I also think I didn't know how much of an advocate I would have to be, and so much stronger than I think I was not a mom. Because I'm a people pleaser.
Yeah.
And you know
not
more
me. Not me, bitches.
And she knows that more than anyone.
I'm like, speak your mind. Don't let them boss you around.
And so I think they gave me a voice almost. And because this is even so far out of my comfort zone. Like, I would not do this.
I was like, do you want to be on the podcast?
I'm like, yes, I have so much to say.
She's like, but I'm nervous. But I'm like, don't worry, I've got buckets of Prosecco. I feel like growing up how I did with like maybe not your traditional parents, I became more selfish and about myself because I had to grow up really quickly. So I think in that moment when I had a child, I was scared shitless and I was in my selfish phase. So it's really taking me time. I think having h0le though has been a really rewarding and like my patience level, learning that and being less about myself for things. Not that I'm like super just about myself, but
I don't think you're selfish.
But I think you get in those modes where it's about you when you're 20s, and having h0le really pushed me out of that a little more. I feel like for identity, when you're a mom, this is my problem. And I think we might, like, you're very much so a mom and you really love that role and you really fall into that.
Yeah.
For me, it's been a very different realm of really wanting to keep my own identity because I knew that if I fell into that, I knew that I wouldn't have happiness in that. If that was my whole identity. I think because business is so important to me and that's been always like my passion. Well, from high school, I was like, I'm going to own a clothing boutique. I'm going to do this. And I think that's been such a big part of my identity that I didn't want to lose that. So I really have fought, and probably people look at me and are like, maybe you're not like the most motherly mom.
But I think we all have different mom modes, and you're not really going to know what that looks like until you have a kid in whichever capacity. Like, I remember saying growing up, I'm going to peak in my 30s when I'm a mom. I'm going to have the best friends. Because I'm going to make sure my kids have friends.
Yeah.
And my mom always did such a good job of that like I had the cool house everyone wanted to be at. And
you had the cool house, but your mom also laid down the shit. It was like, y'all aren't going to do some crazy stuff, She had rules. But it was still like, it was
definitely a loving house that I grew up in. And I was very lucky in that. And so I want to create the same for my kid.
Yeah.
But it's also going to look different. Like, my kids probably aren't going to go to sleepovers because of the history of my family and stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas I want to be the cool house because I want to protect them. But it also means I'm not going to get a lot of breaks.
Yeah.
Because they're not going anywhere.
When you're becoming a mom, I always say, I feel like we raise our kids based off of what we were missing in our childhood and then what we liked about those things. And stability and like support looks different. There's times that you can support your family or support your kid and being like the fun mom. And then sometimes you've got to lay that structure out and set those boundaries for them.
Yeah. And I feel like growing up, my mom was definitely a mom and had the friend card in her back pocket.
Yeah.
And now that I'm an adult, it's the opposite. So you can still pull the mom card.
Yeah.
And I'm 35. But I think you said it perfectly that you give what you missed or what you lacked or what you wished your childhood did look like. And you try to go over and beyond for your kids, whatever that looks like for each person.
We had kids at different times. So I was mid-20s when I had h0le. You were 30 and then now mid-30 or going into your mid-30s. Do you think that would have been differently had you had kids in your mid-20s?
Oh, 1,000%. Especially looking at who I would have been with, like, and what kids would have looked like. Like, no.
Hell no. To the no.
Yeah. I think I have the right partner, the right kids for us.
I think you and Rob balance each other out on parenthood. I think it's a good mixture. I think you guys are good partners together.
He's my best friend. And I think that
she literally married the male version of myself.
Accurate. 100%. I was like, you know what? I want that one. Oh, yeah. But I think it says something to our friendship too, is that I always say I'm the Wednesday Addams to her, like rainbow bright.
Yeah.
Like my house is opposite of this. It's black and white and I dress in all black, but it works for us and it works for my relationship.
I think you have to have I think that was one thing that Bianca and I were talking about friendships the other day, is like how we're different, but you have to have the same foundational morals, because that is not something that you want to sacrifice on. Yeah, it's non-negotiable. You want to be good people. But I think we work well together because we probably see things from different standpoints. And now that we're older, we know how to communicate better with each other.
And I just think, especially with like motherhood, you're going to put your foot in your mouth at some point. Your kid's going to get pissed at you for something dumb.
Sterling was so upset that the other day after we were recording that I made him take a shower because he had skinned up his foot. And I'm like, you're disgusting. Like he's like, I don't want to take one until tomorrow. It's going to sting. I'm like, it's going to sting tomorrow too. He cried and threw a fit, acted crazy in front of Bianca. I was like, came out of the room afterwards. I was like, I should not have acted like that. I was like, glad that you came to that self-discovery on your own.
Well, and the 4-year-old, I'm currently not his best friend because I made him put on clothes today.
How dare you? Like, you are.
And that's
so
his
rude.
Thing is, you're not my best friend. And I'm like, I don't have to be your best friend.
Yeah. That's what your best friend is for, not your mama. You know? I always tell Sterling, my job is to be your parent. Sometimes you're going to love me and sometimes you're not going to like me, and that's okay. But like my job is to keep you alive, give, the tools to be a good person. And sometimes that's going to conflict with how you feel, and that's okay.
No, but we're out here trying to just not raise assholes. And like we see, with your dating life, we see how we don't want our kids to be as men.
I don't know if there are any men out. I was telling Bianca, I was like, literally made it through probably 95% of the men in Raleigh, and all of you guys suck. All of you.
The worst.
It's just like people in general, honestly, like I hear it from like my guy friends. Women suck too. People just are afraid to have uncomfortable conversations. They don't want to fess up and have the courage to tell people how they feel. And I'm the complete opposite of that. I'm like, I would rather have an uncomfortable conversation.
Everyone's always looking for the next best thing. No one can just live in the moment. I actually just talked to my mom about that because I would say Rob and I are always looking for the next best thing for our kids.
Some people really fall into motherhood, and that is something that they want to give fully throughout that time. That's something that we've talked about, is you're like, during these moments, I really want to be there at 100% for my children. And one thing that I really thought about that I need in my life is that once Sterling's out of the house, he's gone. And I didn't want to look back and think, because my own personal identity is it's such a big thing for me not to lose myself, because I've spent a lot of my life being there and being what everybody else needed me to be on things, that I was like, okay, I need to keep a balance. That way I don't lose myself. And once he's out of my house, like, I don't have a husband anymore. I don't want to look back and not have myself, like, because I'm not going to have him. He's going to be off at college, living his best life, probably doing keg stands or something. Yeah.
He's lucky.
Yeah.
No, but, and I think I'm opposite, because I'm like, I'm going to lose myself in motherhood. I'll figure myself out later.
Yeah. But I think that's like good, because we balance each other out, where I'm like, nope, you're going to go. You're going to leave. Like, I force you to do that. And then there's things that you do that I'm like, oh, maybe I should fall more into that like side of being the mom. Not big, because
you're a great mom.
I feel like I'm very involved, but there's certain things that I'm like, okay, like maybe that's something I do want to do. Like in this moment where I would have probably chosen something else, or work to be an importance, or not gone out and gone to do something with Sterling or whatever.
And I think a big part too is so many mothers are in competition with each other. And I think that's where we are good, because it's never a competition. It's, you always come to my house and you're like, you're a better mom at A, B, and C. Yeah. Like you would say, my patience is, I just watch them and I'm like,
usually I'm like, Sterling, don't touch it. And she's like, Sterling, do you want your Cokes? He's like, I want to go over to Aunt Kate's and Uncle Rob's because they're going to give me Cokes all day.
Here's some chicken nuggets. Yeah. Just chill.
Yeah.
But I think so many people get into this like competition part of motherhood, and I have to do this better. My kid needs a bigger birthday party than your kid. And it's like, they're not going to know none of this.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be whatever mom I want to. And there's times that I look at things and I know that I've done them differently from my other mom friends. And I'm fine with that, because that's who I am. I'm not going to pretend to be someone else. Might not be the best in that moment, or might be better than what I would have been, but I don't know. I just feel like you have to remain true to who you are rather than like, it's no competition because I've watched these amazing moms throw $1,000 baby birthdays and their kids are horrendous people. When it's not a competition.
I just don't want to
way.
raise an asshole.
No.
That's my goal.
That's going to be the episode name. I just don't want to raise an asshole.
I don't. I want him to be so well-rounded. And I think that's going to the bougie birthday parties that I'm not going to throw.
Yeah.
But
now I will throw a bougie birthday party every once in a while.
My baby shower was crazy. But I think it's exposing him to everything. It's also exposing him to being bored.
Yes. They need to be bored.
Yeah. And I'm like, you go play. And he's like, I don't want to. I'm like, well, I'm not doing it right now. You know, we were sick last week and it really showed, I think, what kind of little kid he is because he actually took care of Cooper. He's 4 and was like, Mommy, make her a bottle. And he literally sat and read to her while Rob and I were sick and while we slept.
That's sweet.
And so I think that's huge.
I was reading this one research thing where doctors were saying that kids who learned or knew how to play on their own were actually better adjusted for life, like making friends and figuring out how to go through life and do those things. So I was like, okay.
And I think an iPad thing is a huge, like, motherhood that people are like so against it. And that's where we're similar because we're like, we don't really care.
Yeah.
But we limit the amount of time because we don't want.
Because they change, like Sterling
their
goes
attitudes
insane.
change.
And I get it. The parents who don't want that, but I'm like, it's just not realistic for our family. Some people can do that. I'm like, no, we will all die here.
No, and you need a break. My mom, when she keeps Cruz, she's like, sometimes I need like a 30-minute, here's your iPad
Sometimes
and a
I need a
popsicle.
3-hour break.
And just like you sit there for a minute and they'll be okay.
So my advice or takeaway is be who you are. Figure out how much you want to give to motherhood and be okay with that. Whether it's 100% and you know that you're not going to be, that's going to be your full send on it. Or if you're like, I've got 80% and I need to keep 20 or whatever that is. Don't be a shitty parent though. And don't raise assholes.
Yep. And date your spouse.
Yes.
Go on dates. Take time. Like you lose, especially in that first year. It's such a rocky road. Like I feel like Rob and I have a really stable marriage.
Mm-hmm.
But that first year like rocked us more than I thought. And like with her, it was like, oh, we know what to do.
Yeah.
We just lug her around everywhere. But with Cruz, I was like, oh, he's going to break. No, I have to focus on Cruz and you're going to take a back seat. And I think it's really important to go out, even if it's an hour.
Active parents together too.
Mm-hmm.
That way it's not one person pulling all the weight and then you are dating, like you're in the trenches together and it's not like one person is versus not. But I think that's all good advice. Okay. This one is a big one for me. And I think you are a working woman too. So motherhood and career, how do you juggle it?
Oh, my mom, that network.
the community,
network.
baby.
I think I have a wonderful boss. So I'm very lucky that I can say, hey, my kids are sick and she's not, I need a doctor's note. Let's go take care of what you got to take care of. I work in finance. So going up in like my world is a little more difficult. I got a lot of questions like from my higher ups that were saying like, how are you going to juggle this? I'm like, watch me. Like before you doubt me.
It's actually none of your business because if I'm working, then you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. But I think, especially in a male dominated industry, they're like, oh, she can't do it. She's just a mom. And it's no, I'm a powerful mom.
Moms are badass.
And I can do everything.
We're not the babysitter. I'll never forget when men refer to them watching their children as babysitting. And I'm like, sir, you're not getting paid. And this is also your child. So that's not babysitting. That's called being a fucking parent.
Yeah.
Earmuff it, baby.
I didn't do this by myself.
Yeah, no. Shocking. It wasn't immaculate conception with just my egg. Okay. I know that's I know. Yeah. See, again, men, trash. No,
she
not
knows.
all. You got a good dad. I feel like motherhood is just,
it's wild.
I think people are like, there's this balance. There's no balance. There's no balance. You're literally just throwing the ball up. And then when you need to catch the other one, you're throwing the other one up and then catching it. It's not this, oh, everything. I'm going to dedicate 50% of my time to this and 50 to the kid. It's, you do what you got to do when you got to do it.
Yeah.
I will say owning a business has more flexibility while it's more demanding on things, it has more flexibility. I can go to Sterling stuff. Like the other day for Valentine's Day, I surprised them with like lunch and like balloons and teddy bears and stuff. And if I had a corporate position, it would be a little more difficult to just go whenever I wanted to do those things.
I think trying to climb the corporate ladder as a mom, like they're, especially with my husband, 100% commission. Like he can't miss a day. Whereas I'm very lucky because I'm like, I can just take PTO, but his PTO is losing money. Whereas mine is like, oh, I'll get paid. I'm just going to sit at home with the kids for a minute. But there's some days that I'm like, let me go to work. Let's switch for a day and just let me just bullshit with the guys and hang out and go to lunch.
That's one thing I'll say, because everyone's, oh, stay at home moms, they just have it made. And I'm like, clearly you've never stayed at home or been a mom. Because I remember when I was like doing my own business and I was at home 24/7 and Adam would leave and I was so jealous. I was like, oh my God, like you're going to, yeah, you're working and you have to deal with people, but like you get to go and sit in a car for 30 minutes, listen to whatever you want to and I'm sitting there like working, juggling a baby, doing all this stuff. And I was like, oh my God, it's just so nice. And for me, that's where I don't really fall into that motherhood. Like I would rather had left the house and I could never be a stay-at-home mom because I think it's such a demanding job. Like that I would literally rather go work 80 hours a week than be a stay-at-home mom.
I'm polar opposite. I'm like, Rob, when? You let me know.
I just think there's like, I'm an extrovert though. And I feel like that's where that comes into play is I need to see people. Yes.
And I do and I don't. I feel like I have an extroverted side, but then I'm like, my social battery is out now. I'm going to go home for the next 5 to 7 days. And I'll talk to you later.
I was talking to a friend and she was talking about stay-at-home moms and just like kind of like, well, she stays at home. And I'm like, have you ever, it's so demanding. There's just so much that goes into that. And I'm like, I think it was almost like a break when I went back to work after my divorce. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like I can have lunch in peace. I'm not like having to hear a baby cry or 2-year-old demand, put ransom on things. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then when I went home, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm exhausted from working, but I feel like I could be more present. I feel like when I'm working and out of the house, I'm a better mom coming home for me personally. Now, I know that's not the case for a lot of people, but I am glad that I was able to have the flexibility when Sterling was younger to be there. But I honestly think now I'm probably more involved and better on those things.
I think it's hard too, because I actually just told Rob this like last week, because I think it was during the snow and he was like, I have to go to work tomorrow. And I was like, my work doesn't stop. I wake up with the kids in the middle of the night. I go to work or I work from home for 8 or 9 hours. And then I have to go pick Cruz up. I have her. If my mom wasn't there last week, she was at my brother's. So I had the full gamut. And then I put them both to bed.
And Rob, you were happy with that?
I definitely was like, when Rob got home, I was like, bro,
you can't
take a babe. Pick one. I don't care which
your baby.
one. Take Cruz upstairs. Do something.
I would have been like, Rob, you're taking both of them and I'm leaving. I'm going staying at Sydney's.
No, but I also love it because I know they're not gonna, she's getting so big so fast. And I put a 12-month outfit on her today and it broke my heart. Those are 6-month pants and she's busting at the seams. But it just goes so fast. He's going to be in kindergarten. I'm not going to be able to do this as much.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like you look back at those moments and you're like, dang, I think you've got to cherish it as much as you can because it's life.
Yeah, and it goes so fast.
Yeah, you just have to get through it and be there. And there's moments that I'm like, okay, I am more intentional about how I spend time on things. Like I know there's times that I'm like, I just got to make it through the day. And then there's moments that I'm like, okay, now I'm fully zoned in and I'm going to be super present in these moments. And I think it's just about balance of that. But to go back on what you said, men and women, a lot of women too do this. They want you to choose like work over your kids.
I think that's the only way, especially in like corporate America. You have to basically choose work. And I think that's where I'm like so into motherhood because I'm not going to. Like I'm going to deny the promotions right now probably in order to have the 9 to 5 because one of us has to. We can't go off Rob's schedule.
Yeah. No, I agree. So somebody's got to sacrifice on it.
And it's usually the mom.
Yeah. Which is bullshit too. It's great if you want to do that. I don't think it's great if that's something that's like important to you and then you're the one who's sacrificing and you're like, but it's an automatic thing.
It is automatic. And I think it's hard too because I know Rob, well, I'm not saying just Rob, but a lot of men go to work and they know that home is taken care of. So they don't have to think about it.
For sure.
And so they're just at work and they can dive in and do what they got to do.
Which I always have a big issue with. That's been a big thing for me is when Adam and I which just, and he's a great father and like very involved, but it was almost like if he had like a work trip, it just automatically, I'm like, yeah, no. If I just had a work trip and left, are you cool with that? Like usually run it by. But I remember when we started the boutique, I was going, like we were doing a bunch of purchasing trips. And so for 2 weeks, I had to be out of town. And I was talking to somebody and they're like, oh my God, like you're leaving Sterling for 2 weeks. Like, how can you do that? I'm like, simple. You must not met my child where a 2 week vacation sounds amazing at this point. Like, I love you. I'm going to miss you, but
he also has a dad that can step up.
Yeah. And they were like, oh my God, that's like so awesome of Adam. And I'm like, what? Like to watch? I'm like, you do realize he had a job where he traveled 2 weeks out of the month. No one was like, oh my God, Sydney, you're taking care of your kid. That's amazing.
Isn't that crazy? How do you do it?
I feel
no.
When men do it, like, God, let's give an award.
Yeah, because I went to Chicago in December and I had to make sure everyone was had it.
I said, Caitlin, you just leave that house and you enjoy that trip.
No, I was like, Mom, can you keep Cooper?
No.
And here's all the milk. And Rob, if you could just get Cruz from my mom every night. Like he didn't even have to do daycare.
No.
He literally just had to get to my mom's house and go home.
Meanwhile, if he goes out, and I think Rob's a great dad, but he's not setting up things for you when he's got to go out of town. It's like, all right, I'll see you later.
No, Rob, he had to go to some finance school in Charleston and he literally left me asleep on the couch with Cruz.
But remember that. You were like, you didn't even say goodbye. Nothing.
I was like, no. I'm like, okay, bye.
Bye.
See you later.
But I think with the career, again, you just have to like really map out what's important to you. If having a balanced career, if you really want to go and get those promotions, I think you need to have a great partner who supports you in that. I think drawing your boundaries for like where in the last year I've become a lot more like I put a lot of time into my business earlier, but I realized Sterling is getting older and I don't want to miss out on these last couple of years. There's a lot of sacrifice that I had to do before because, well, I don't have a husband. So I knew that I had to support for the life that I wanted to give Sterling. And that was something I wasn't willing to sacrifice on. But now not realizing, oh my God, I had this epiphany that I want to be. But I'm like, no, now I can. I've worked hard and now I can have a break and be there for him and go do stuff. And there's days that I'm just like, you want to skip school? And also having my own business allows me to just have him, like when he's tracked out, he comes with me to work. And it's great to have for him to see working and having goals and stuff like that.
And the little Gatorbug mascot.
I know he is. And he's a pretty good worker too. Is there anything else that you'd want to talk about with the motherhood and career?
Use the PTO. Don't let it go back to the company.
Yeah, it's not an award. Take it. And don't feel guilty about it.
I always feel like every time I go to my boss, I'm like, well, I'm taking PTO to go here and here. And she's like, Caitlin, I don't care.
Yeah. It's your PTO. Okay. What advice would you give a new mom?
Especially in those like early days postpartum. Just ask for help. And I also don't think there's such a culture around, oh, you have to have your body back immediately. Or just enjoy your kid.
Or it's not going to be the end of the world.
Yeah, you're going to be okay.
You will have plenty of time at some point to go to Pilates and do all that shit and go on diets. And I think how your kids see you view your body is how they're going to. I think it's about feeding yourself right and just a balance. I also think that people don't talk about like postpartum depression enough. And I think that's a big.
My mom could probably go on this for hours about my postpartum journey, but I also think I would want to do a study on postpartum and birth control because I had such a beautiful postpartum until they put an IUD in. And then I completely switched everything.
Well, it messes up your hormones.
Yeah. And your hormones aren't even back to normal at 6 weeks. I think it's such a bizarre thing. That's what they do is you don't want to be pregnant again right away. So let's fix it. And then, leave it up to the man.
Yeah. Let him deal with it. I just carried a child for 9 months and birthed them out.
I have a plate-sized scab on the inside. They can handle the birth control part.
As women, we feel like we've got to be the best and we've got to hide when things aren't going right. And God forbid, we just want to be upset about something or have our bodies kick us after we just had a kid and have a meltdown. And looking back at it, I for sure had postpartum depression, but I didn't even recognize that's what it was. It was just a lot because I thought it was just having a kid and like the stress of that.
Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of like your tribe comes in too, because they can I don't think I noticed it. I think my mom was the one that was like, Caitlin, something's not right. You need it out, and begged Rob
to
do something about it. But I just think that is definitely where you're like, people come in and you just realize that it'll be okay.
Yeah.
You'll make it. It may not be the most fun time of your life, but get help. Go talk to someone. There's so many other things. And I think that's where exercise or just getting out of the house for an hour is such a big thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. My biggest piece of advice that I tell new moms, I shouldn't be giving advice to many people, but when it comes to this, it's not the end of the world. When I had Sterling, breastfeeding, like everyone, you got to breastfeed. Breast is best. Like, this whole thing. And you feel like, okay, if I'm not hitting this and doing, my kid's going to be messed up. And my sister-in-law, she just said, Sydney, breastfeeding isn't more important than having a sane mom. And she was just like, you need to do what's best for you and your family. And that's my thing, is just doing that.
Well, you told me that when I was trying to breastfeed Cruz and it wasn't working. That was it. And I had to feed him somehow. But I feel like you telling me that advice gave me like the green light that I wasn't doing anything wrong.
But I think just doing what you need to do to make it through, and no kid is going to be like, remember that time at 6 months you didn't do this? I'm like, no, you made it. We survived. Everyone's living. You're not a jerk. Like, you're not an asshole. Well, we're good.
How many job interviews do you go on that they're like, hey, breastfed or formula?
Yeah, I know. No, you've had formula. Get the hell out of here. Get the fuck out.
That's why you're nuts.
That's why you're a loser.
No one
your
cares.
Mom didn't love you. You had a great value formula. Get out. Get out.
No, we all get grown is what my mom says.
Yeah.
And we're all going to make mistakes.
You just got to roll with it. And when your kids see you being like quick to roll with things and not so stuck on this idea, they are able to adjust a lot better, I think. I feel like that was like really awesome, touching on parenthood in a couple different ways. So I hope that you guys took something out of this. And if you like this, hit like, subscribe. If there's something else you want to hear what our take is on it, write us. It could be another fun episode. All right, guys, have a good day. Bye.
Fuck that shit, listen, look, cash flowing, pockets growing, wake up, bless every morning, just in case y'all didn't notice, I'm the fucking shit up in this bitch and everybody knows it.